Hello and welcome to this episode of For Your Journey. As we are continuing our socially distant episodes, we also acknowledge that people around the country, around the world, are experiencing different levels of social distancing and quarantine and still spending a lot of time in the home. And wanted to bring back the idea of a thought that District Apostle brought out in a service towards the end of March, when a lot of this coronavirus attention was starting and services were kind of being suspended and people were working from home now. Like it became a time when a lot more people were working from home. And a verse that was highlighted in that March 22nd service, I believe it was 22nd, was about Deuteronomy 6, where it's talking about the commandments of loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul. It says, impress these commandments, impress them on your children, talk about them when you sit at home, and write them on the door frames of your houses and of your gates. And now that we're a few months into this situation, we just want to have a check-in there and open it up for discussion and see if you have any additional thoughts on that, what that means now that people have been spending so much time at home.
Yes, I can imagine all kinds of feelings and things that are happening with everyone being at home, or those with their children at home on a 24/7 basis, and they're not used to that. But nevertheless, as you mentioned, it was a point to, particularly on the Sabbath day, on Sunday, that there would be something different about Sunday. And I think especially now, in this time period, we should mark Sunday to be something different for our children, that they see that it's not to make them sit down and act like they're in church for 2 hours or anything like that. But when these thoughts of these spiritual disciplines, for instance, are in your thoughts, then at the appropriate time to give some time to speak to your children about these things, how important they are. And particularly, it should fall on a Sunday. Then they realize, on Sunday we talk about some topics that we maybe don't often talk about, or we do talk about during the week would be wonderful as well. But I think to make the time, and sometimes with a child, the time is 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe another time it can be 20 minutes before they go to bed or something like that, to highlight something worthwhile to them about their relationship with Christ.
Yeah, and really trying to show, like you said, maybe especially on a Sunday, but maybe weaving that in at all days of the week and in any moment that God provides. I mean, He's a God of opportunity, and if He provides opportunities to speak truth and love and grace and to teach children about God and what that means and what a relationship with Him means, we can hopefully embrace those opportunities.
I believe the Holy Spirit opens those opportunities if we ask Him.
Yeah.
But one has to ask for it. The Lord, show me the right time.
Yeah.
I want to, even if at the beginning of every day, a parent would say that, I want to speak about you today to my child. And they're only 2 or 3 or 5, or, and they're so occupied with everything else, or we're so frustrated because we're with one another the whole day long. I don't know what else to do. I can imagine what mothers and fathers might say. But if we ask the Lord, show us the right time. I want to say something today about you, that my child knows that you love them and that they learn to love you. And the Lord can do it. It's possible, I believe.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think especially with this Deuteronomy verse, like it's one of the prime tenets of the Faith Arc strategy that was introduced a few years back, really trying to encourage how the primary discipling opportunities for developing Christians and growing Christians is in the home. Like when you look at the time spent at church, even, when there's no virus and no quarantine, if the church has maybe 2 hours a week, maybe, and the rest of the 168 hours of that week, what's happening in that time? I was at a conference last year, and this author and speaker talked about, on this topic, that sometimes it can be seen like, well, what's not happening at church? We need to develop new programs. We need to develop new classes. We need to do all stuff. What's happening at church? she kind of flipped the thought on that, saying, well, it's not always what's not happening at church that's the problem. It's usually what's not happening in the home. And she wasn't saying that accusatory or trying to provide a guilt trip. She's trying to really underline the emphasis of parents and their influence on their children. And that's why, too, in Faith Arc, we've tried to partner with parents. We even have one of our resources called Partnering with Parents, because we're not trying to say that as a church, it's just the parents' job. And as the parents, we don't want them to just say, well, I drop my kid off at Sunday school for an hour a week, and maybe by the time they're done with snack and singing, it's maybe 30 minutes a week. Like that can't be all of it either. We want to partner with parents and really try to create some robust tools and resources and make it easier to disciple and to have those conversations, so that when the opportunity does come up, that we're able to, parents are able to lean into those a little bit.
I think so, and especially again during this COVID time, we've tried every week to give some resources, some even if it's a game or test or story or something, so that the parents would have some tool in their hand to use during the week to aid in their teaching of the children.
Yeah, and some families, some houses have wonderful rhythms already built into that. I guess that's part of it too, is about creating rhythms of spiritual disciplines, of holy habits that help deepen their relationship with the Lord. Yeah, and some of these resources that the District Apostle mentions, you can find through a link in the description of the video below. Again, just something to try to equip parents to use as they see fit, and trying to strengthen that house. So. All right.
Good.
Well, thank you for your comments on that, and thank you for joining us on this episode of For Your Journey. If you have any suggested questions or topics for future discussion, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. And this has been For Your Journey.